village trustee. There are 4 candidates and 3 positions to be filled. We invited all of the candidates to attend. We welcome Molly Flynn and Ernie Schneer, who were able to come. Grace DJ responded, but she is on a work trip at a public transportation agency in West Virginia and is unable to attend tonight's forum. It is a little long commute, isn't it? We've attempted to reach Peter Schwann several times by phone and by email, and he has not responded. The League of Women Voters of Buffalo Niagara is pleased to present this opportunity for the voters to meet the candidates. The League is strictly nonpartisan and never supports political parties or candidates. Conducting candidate forums is just one of the ways that we attempt to have good education for voters about the issues and about where the candidates stand. The rules for tonight's forum. We permit no substitutes for candidates conducted by the, for candidates at debates or forums conducted by the League. At least 2 candidates for each race must be present. Presentation should be strictly confined to issues, not personalities. The order of opening statements was determined by drawing lots. Closing statements will be done in the reverse order. And there we have timekeepers, actually, Judy Wiedemann and Allison Hyde will be keeping time tonight. And our target, well, we'll see, probably until we run out of questions. No longer than 2 hours. I want to thank Ellen Newmeyer, who coordinated tonight's event and also is our videographer this evening. She was the very first videographer that the League had in last October. The video will be posted on the League's website and also will be on our YouTube channel. And I want to thank Pat Costanzo also for helping this evening, and Ellen Huma. All right, audience questions. The opening statements, each candidate will have up to 3 minutes for an opening statement. And when there's 30 seconds left of their time limit, Ellen will show the 30-second warning. Oh, you're going to do 1 minute too?
And I don't have the 30 seconds.
Do you want it?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do 1 minute and 30 seconds? How do you want to do it?
I think either.
Which do you want to do?
So we'll say 1 minute.
Okay.
So we won't lose it after all.
All right. So you
And then-
listen.
Share mine. You want to share mine?
Candidates may not interrupt each other or make personal attacks. All questions will be written on cards or papers. And Ellen, are you collecting them?
Yes.
Okay. And Ellen will collect them. I already have some, Ellen.
Okay.
Questions should be worded so all candidates may answer them. And if they're not, we either won't ask them or we will adapt them so that both candidates can answer them. And they will be asked of the candidates in rotating order. That is, unless I mess it up. And then the candidates will tell me. Candidates will be allowed 3 minutes for closing statements. This is a dialogue between the audience and the candidates. It is not a debate. The League of Women Voters of Buffalo Niagara is recording this event. The League owns the content of each candidate event and will post it in its entirety. Only licensed media, including TV, radio, and newspapers, are entitled to air portions of the recording, in keeping with the Federal Communications Commission rules. All others who air this recording may do so only in its entirety, and no one is permitted to display edited footage. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Ernie, who will make his opening statement.
May I sit
Sit
right here?
down or stand up to the chair?
Would want to stay where we are? Make it easier. Hi, I'm Ernie Shear, and thank you for coming. Would like to thank the League of Women Voters for, pull it up, okay. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity, and it's unfortunate we don't have more people here, but what you do is very important for our democracy at our local level, and it's important for people to hear what we have to say and hear the candidates and their opinions and hear what we have to offer. So hopefully people at home will tune into your page and your website and hear what we have to say. I think an informed citizenry is so important and to our democracy, and democracy is more important than ever with what's happening in world events. We see how fragile democracy is, and so we appreciate what you're doing. I think my opening statement is I have loved working on the village board. We have an excellent board. We have a lot of talented people from diverse backgrounds who serve the village. And that is really the crux of what we do on the village board, is we serve the people, we serve the needs of the people, we have to listen to the people, and we need to respond quickly. When we get a phone call, we call them back, we find an answer, and that I'd like to continue to do that. I really enjoy the opportunity that being on the board, it's given me an opportunity to learn about my community, and I've enjoyed my time. So that's it.
Good evening. My name is Molly Flynn. Thanks for everyone for coming tonight and the opportunity for us to address the group here this evening. And thank you to the Women League of Voters for organizing this. My name is Molly Flynn. I've been on the zoning board for the last 15 years. And when the opportunity to run for a village trustee seat came up to me this fall, and people asked me if I was interested, I thought about it, and I said, I really loved being on the zoning board. I've served under 4 mayors, and have seen the town progress, and really have seen my role as a safeguard of the land use in our community, and I take that very seriously. And when this opportunity came up, I said, you know what, I think I want to do something different. I want to get to know more about the different departments and budgets and different issues that come up. And so I just love serving like Ernie. I just love serving the community. I see this as a new opportunity for me to learn, to engage with citizens in a different way than I have been in the past. And to continue to preserve our community and the reasons why we all live here. It's a special place, and I think that I would be a great addition to the board. I take my job on the ZBA very seriously, and I think that I will continue to do that as a trustee. So yeah, it's just another opportunity for me to serve and to be involved in my community.
Okay. Now, Ernie, that's the first question. And it says, we're going to make the easy one first. What are your top 3 priorities if you are elected? And Ernie and Molly, if you ever want me to repeat a question, just hold up the green card.
Oh, okay, great.
Terry, tell me again the time each person has to answer the question. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
There will be 2 minutes, 2 minutes for each question. So what are your top 3 priorities if you are elected?
right, so top three priorities, I think probably one of the neglected up until recently areas within the village has been Hamlin Park. And I think continuing to improve Hamlin Park, improving the facilities, perhaps moving the bathroom facilities to a more logical location, offering people a better basketball court that is oriented in the correct north-south orientation. A lot of, just moving forward with Hamlin Park, making sure we have a park that people can enjoy. I think also continuing to watch taxpayer dollars. We have budget meetings. We have a budget meeting coming up this Saturday at 9 a.m. if anyone's interested. Watching how we spend our money, the taxpayer money, and serving the people. Just being able to get out there and be responsive to people's questions and needs, wants, and problems. That's the basic purpose of being on the board.
So like Ernie, my first priority or thing that I want to learn about is the budget process. I think that obviously taxpayers, we live in this town and we pay good taxes here, and some of the services that we're used to, people want their leaves picked up, they want their, their plowing done. I think that the DPW and the village does a great job of that. I really would like to delve into the budget and see where money goes and to make sure that we're good stewards of public dollars and the taxpayers are getting what they deserve from that. On the flip side of that, there's also an opportunity, I think, for me personally, because of my professional background with grants, to help out the village in accessing some public funds that we currently, I've had various conversations with them and they're like, oh, this will be great, we can, you might be able to help us out in this area. There's ARPA money coming down, the village has got some money from the recovery plan, there's state funds coming down, there's infrastructure money. I'd love to see some renewable energy things happen in the community if possible. So the whole budget, I would say, is probably one priority. The second would be land use. I'm still going to be a stickler on that. I think that, we have a finite amount of space in this town, and having booming businesses and people who want to live here and do business here is great, but there's some parking issues, I think. I've seen the studies and I'm not real sure of the answers to those yet, but I'd like to see those addressed. And then again, just, so budget, land use, and then development. So I think that they're probably all combined there.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, I planned that.
Okay, and this,
I just woke up.
Cancel?
No, hit stop. On the right.
We need a young person to help.
Oh, here comes help.
This is what this is where I get
No,
the
right
biggest
there.
feeling.
Right
That's ages. I don't know.
No, I gotta be careful. Well, I don't know.
Oh, it's this one.
That's why I asked that.
there. Yeah, she can't make it work either.
Thank you, Kristen.
I was just cheering us on for this age level.
Thank you so much. No problem.
Woo, woo, woo.
okay. And this will go first to Molly.
Sure.
If you're elected, how would you work toward a carbon neutral village by 2050?
That's a tall order. That's a tall order. It's interesting that you bring that up. I just sat in on a training from New York State or Erie County did last week on renewable energy, and the state has some really lofty goals for carbon emissions and reducing our footprint, and it's really exciting stuff. So again, I would just say working with my fellow board members and the administrative staff of the village to, you know, and anybody else who's interested in it, really, there's probably going to be some sort of committee and engaging the citizens in it, but what would be the priorities, how much does it cost, what can we do, and you know, really develop a plan to do that. So I think I would just be a part of that plan and willing to contribute to that, and it's exciting stuff, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, there's costs to this, and people are going to have to change the way they do things. So I think it's going to be a slow process, but I think it's something that, you know, we can work together as a community to do. So, and an important one.
Well, I think it's really part of a larger national, international plan. You know, shifting over to electric vehicles, I think that's something that will happen. It'll happen first with fleet vehicles, utility vehicles. So, you know, I could envision at some point down the road, perhaps we purchase, the DPW purchases pickup trucks, small vehicles that are EV vehicles. Ford's come out with the F-150. There's a number of pickup trucks that are now being produced that are electric. So I can see that happening. But I think you'll see electric vehicles 20, 30 years. They will be commonplace. I mean, it sounds, a lot of people think it's goofy, but people thought cell phones were goofy when they first came out, when you could only use them in small parts of the city. I think charge stations, that, you know, we'd have to include those too, but you also have other options. Battery swap stations are popular in China. There's a company called NEO, which they don't use charge stations. They roll in and the robotics swaps out the batteries. So I think we will be part of that. I think it's inevitable that we are part of that trend and that wave moving towards EVs. I think sooner, earlier than that, we might be getting into solar. We've put solar panels at the DPW. They haven't performed as well as we had expected or as we were told when they were installed. But I think solar is something we need to be encouraging within our community, and encouraging healthy options like bicycling. I've been bicycling more often. It's not easy in parts of East Aurora. Try biking on Main Street. It can be dangerous. People yelling at you. So it's going to be something, I think, that'll be part of a larger plan, but I think we will do our part when the time comes, you know, as we move toward electric vehicles.
Okay, the next question is going to come first to Ernie. There are two questions, and I think I'm going to put them both together, okay? They both relate to Hamlin Park. And one is the short answer question: will you consult all the neighbors involved before pursuing any new projects within Hamlin Park? And the second thing, what are your thoughts on the need to invest in Hamlin Park? So will you consult the neighbors, and what are your thoughts about the needs to invest?
Those are excellent questions, and they're fairly easy to answer. We have involved the neighbors. We have a Hamlin Park committee. The mayor has done a wonderful job organizing neighbors. We have communicated with neighbors and others in the community to take part in the committee to tell us what they want. For example, the pickleball courts. We've had pickleball enthusiasts who have come in and advised us on what they want. We consulted with a local basketball coach as to how the basketball court should be designed and oriented, which a non-basketball guy like me, because I'm 5'6", I've never been able to even make a basket. I failed that part of it because unsatisfactory I got on my, I'm not making that up either. So I would have no idea that, you know, having the court go east-west doesn't work, and you know, it's something that I would have ever thought of. So we've consulted people, and we will continue to. And then yeah, we need to improve the quality of Hamlin Park. It's been neglected for too long. The one bathroom is completely out of place. Going back to when my children were young and we would go to the park, and my daughter would have to go use the bathroom, and then we'd all have to leave the playground and walk up the hill to the cinder block bathroom way over on the other side of the playhouse. You know, not good. So moving the bathroom to a location that makes more sense for families. We've done some good things. We have paved the track. It's getting a lot of use. People love it. You know, families with strollers, you know, kids with little tricycles can easily ride there. You know, working on cleaning up the existing bathrooms, trying to make as many improvements as we can. And we are, and we will, and we'll continue to do that. You'll see more coming in the future.
Thanks. Yeah, you guys, the new track's great. You guys did a great job with that. To be honest with you, I hadn't really thought very much about Hamlin Park till 2 weeks ago when the advertiser asked me what my thoughts were on it before. So I went down and got the master plan and read it, and went down and took a walk down there. I hadn't been there for a while. I can't make a basket, but I got some skills. So, you know, in looking at the budget and looking at the plan, I thought it was a reasonable plan that they had put forth. There are some ADA, there's some compliance issues, there's some safety issues with some of those buildings. The surfaces, you know, my mom's seeing impaired, and she walked down there with me, and I had to hold her the whole time. I was nervous about her on the various, just walking in there. So, yeah, I'm definitely for, well, first of all, yes, we're going to consult, and you know, every neighbor before we do anything, I think is the way I view things. I mean, or how I try to conduct myself before doing anything, or I will on the board, to get their input, obviously, and especially people who use the park more than I do, to get their thoughts on it. But also from a taxpayer's perspective, how much it's going to cost, what's reasonable, and getting a plan moving forward. Maybe it's different phases. It looked like there were some phases in there, and make it a more usable, safe environment for people to enjoy it. I mean, it's a treasure, it's a jewel. I mean, we have 16 acres in the middle of our village that there's lots of different uses for it, and everyone should be able to avail themselves of that.
Thank you. And let's see. Molly, you get the first stab at this question.
Okay.
Okay. What concerns do you have about density issues as more developers try to make money off of our community's popularity?
This is a tricky question, because when you don't have density and you don't have people interested, then you've got problems too. With your businesses, you go through central New York into some areas where you walk down their main street or drive through these little towns, and their main streets aren't booming. So you don't want that either. So I think that there's a fine line and a balance there. I think that we want to be a village that welcomes businesses and as well as visitors. But there's a point where it gets too saturated as well. So I think that's where zoning comes into place. I think that's where the planning board comes in, the village board, and I think that that's our job to safeguard so we don't get to that point. But you know, in general, I'm for development. I think housing is an issue here in the village. Again, we have a finite amount of space, and you know, senior housing's come up in talking to people, and you know, different living options with accessory buildings and such. So, you know, we want people to live here and to enjoy our community. And businesses, you know, when you need businesses, you want to be able to go and you want to have a corner store that you can go to. You don't want to have to drive to Orchard Park or somewhere else. So I would just say, I guess I'm pro-business, pro-development, but with the caveat that at some point we need to contain, you know, it to a certain point so it doesn't get too dense.
Thank you, Molly. Yeah, I agree with most of what most of what you said. We're fairly dense already. We do not have much land to develop. There's the parcel out at the end of Girard, which is owned by Fisher Price, which is not available at this point. There's some other land, industrial property over behind Forsyth used to be, it's now called Clark Air. We don't really have a lot of big spaces. What I'm most concerned with is having housing that's affordable especially for senior citizens. I would like to see people be able to convert accessory buildings into housing for seniors. As we have an aging population, I would like to be able to, stay here. I have a 5-bedroom home. It's a large house. I don't know that I can afford that as a senior or maintain maintenance of it. I'd like to move in with my daughter. Perhaps we could put a building in behind her house, and so I think that's so we need to be we have density, and it makes us feel vibrant. It makes our town alive. We're a semi-urban type village. It feels alive now, and it didn't always feel that way when I was a kid. We had vacant storefronts. We had a grain elevator that was abandoned and smelled bad. Where the gastropub is today. We had, it was just, it's good to have business. It's good to have eyes on the street and people walking around. There's nothing worse than going through a town and there's vacant storefronts. And we went to one this past weekend. I won't mention the name of the town, but it was once a vibrant city. And there's nothing going on. It's very scary. You don't want that. You want people to be out and about. But we could use zoning, as you said, to address those needs. It's just common sense.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question goes first to Ernie. There are 2 questions related to parking. One is, what is your specific plan to solve parking in the village, especially on special event days? And the second part of the question, parking on Elm Street is problematic. How can it be solved? Ernie, special event parking and parking on Elm Street.
Why don't you take this one first?
Yeah. Well, we've added, I think, 78 new parking spaces over the past year. Additional spaces behind the Barbell with the rebuilding of the lot. Additional places on Riley Street. We've moved parking from the south side of Oakwood to the north side, away from the driveways, making it safer for the residents on the south side of Oakwood at the cemetery to be able to pull out of their driveways. I think the parking problem is a perceived problem. I think we don't really have a problem. I think we have people who they have this mindset that they want to shop like they're at the mall. And they want to be able to park as closely as possible to wherever they're going. And that's not necessarily going to happen here. As I've said before, when you go to Elmwood Avenue in Buffalo, you're not going to find parking right there. It's a rarity. It's a good day if you get a spot close to where you want to be. You might have to park 2-3 streets over and you walk. As far as Elm Street, I've addressed that. I've gone to the safety committee to see if we can turn that into a one-way street. We have spoken to the property owners, in particular the owner of the grain elevator, the old Godfrey grain elevator, and we have tried to get them to open the lot up as village parking. We had that briefly with the previous owner. That went away. He does not want anyone parking there, even when his business isn't open. So that's really an issue of trying to get people to, owners to be more community-minded that way, but it's private property. They can do what they want. Elm Street is incredibly successful now. Wasn't always that way. We had one bar on that street, and that was it. And was not a happening place for my entire lifetime. So now we have multiple businesses, including one new business that just moved in, and that's going to be additional cars. We have a successful bakery there. We have another successful bakery. So, okay.
So like Ernie, I agree that I'm not sure it's necessarily a problem. I think it's a change. I mean, I live on Oakwood, and for me to get down the street now has changed significantly with those new spots between Olean and Elm Street. And, you know, Elm Street used to be a breeze. I used to cut over that way. Now I avoid it. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter. So I think that in terms of special events, again, I don't want to give the impression that I know what the parking issues are for those special events. I think I would defer to the experts on that, which would be the police or fire or whomever, who would have suggestions on how we can maybe better route people or provide some alternatives. Again, encouraging people maybe not to park or to walk and bike if they could. But again, having parking or perceived parking issues, if it is in fact perceived, is a good thing on a main street with a lot of businesses. So, and I think zoning has addressed that, the new zoning code, I think the addition of parking spots. So, yeah, I guess in terms of the role as a village trustee would be to, obviously to listen to people's concerns and to speak to whoever the appropriate persons are to see if we can mitigate some of those issues as they arise.
Okay. The next question goes first to Molly. What steps will you take to ensure that residents surrounding the Walnut Street project will have minimal disruptions and inconveniences during the project?
Yeah, so Walnut Street, that's the property that everyone was waiting for something to happen, and it's finally here. So, again, I read this plan. I went down and got a copy of it, and had been hearing about it from zoning. We were involved in some of the initial 2-3 properties on Prospect, and then now with the 6 houses on Walnut. And in reading the plan, it really did seem to me that the contractor and the owner had come up with a plan in the best, balancing their interests and those of the village and the people around there and being respectful of that. That's to make something that would work for that area. I think that the planning board's recommendations about the water and the infrastructure were some of the initial questions that immediately came to my mind, knowing people that live on Center Street and that there is standing water in their backyard, and is this going to cause any more issues? So I think the role as a village trustee, again, would be to defer to the planning board to make sure that the contractors do what they say they're going to do. If they're working at odd hours or not cleaning up after themselves or whatever, to stay after them and to hold them accountable for, just that they toe the line in building this project in a way that's as least disruptive as possible. So.
Yeah, I've been through this before on the village board with other projects. The one on Hamlin Avenue with the condos was one of the examples. Being responsive to the neighbors, talking to them. I would go out on a Saturday, knock on doors. How's it going? Here's my phone number. Please call me if you have a question. Please call me if there is something that you see that you don't like. And then asking the contractor to correct the problem. I think we need to make sure drainage is done right. That's very, very important. I don't feel comfortable right now with the plans for the water. I need to know, I need answers, making sure we understand that water that comes off the front of those buildings, that those storm sewers on Walnut can actually hold it, can take it. Making sure that dust and noise on the street is cleaned up and dealt with. But I think most importantly is to be in constant communication with the neighbors. They are the eyes and ears, they're living it. And then holding the contractor accountable, making sure he is or they are working within proper working hours, that they're not being disruptive of people's lives. People work hard, people pay a lot of money for their homes, people deserve to have peace and quiet on a weekend or after hours when they come home. But I think, and I think the neighbors are obviously, in my mind, the most important part of the equation. You know, they need to be taken care of, they need to be protected, and they shouldn't have to suffer for a project that is going in.
Okay, I will have to say, I have never seen a better set of questions.
Good question.
Yeah, they're great questions.
I would say. So, and that's to everyone here who's either asked a question or thought about the question and said, yeah, I want to know about that. Pesticides, and that includes herbicides, insecticides. And the comment was, anything that ends in sides means to kill. Pesticides are drastically killing off bees and other pollinators, affecting our future food supply. What carrot or stick will you use to eliminate unneeded cosmetic pesticides on our lawns and gardens?
Go on first, right? Yeah. Pesticides and herbicides, yeah, that's, you know, they're all over. And they cause illness and they cause problems with nature, pollinators. I am a gardener. I don't know that the village has, I mean, we have already on the village board, we will not allow the use of herbicides on village property. We had some problems, and I believe the town board, I don't know if they still use herbicides, but there was a point at which they were using the herbicides to kill the weeds around headstones and kill the weeds around bleachers in the parks, fences, and we no longer allow that. So we've done that as a village, but I don't know that we have the authority to ban pesticides and herbicides from the village of East Aurora. I believe that's more of a state power. I believe the DEC would have to. I would like to see them banned. I don't care for the use of pesticides and herbicides. I think they're overused often. They end up in our groundwater. I see the effects of Roundup use on cornfields out in Wales, where my wife has her family has a summer home, and you know, I just don't think it's healthy for our environment or for our people and the animals and creatures that live in it.
So again, I agree with Ernie in that I don't think that there's the authority per se to do anything about that in terms of what people do in their lawn, and that they're legal to buy these substances to control the weeds or to use in their personal property. However, I think that as village trustees, we can set good examples, and I did not know that you guys didn't use that on public property, so that's great. And I think this is where education comes into play, participating in any sort of opportunity that we can share information with our neighbors and friends and family about this issue, as well as any other issues that will help people live healthier lives are great. And so I would, in terms of my role in the village, I would welcome the opportunity to, be involved in something like that, or support any sort of educational programming, to try to get people to move away from those. So it's kind of like the renewable energy. It's baby steps to get away from some of these things that, it's a lot easier just to spray some stuff and walk away than it is to take care of it in other ways. So anything that we can do to obviously promote that would be something I would be in favor of.
This will go first to Molly. Many village residents have been surprised by items the village board has considered. How would you improve communication with the residents?
Okay, I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? They're surprised by items that they've
They've been surprised by items the village board has considered.
Like they didn't know they were going to be on the agenda, or they didn't realize there was something coming up, that they didn't know there was a public hearing on something that I think is what, I think that's what, I'm assuming that's what it is.
Okay.
Well,
I think that's what they meant.
okay.
Yeah, not knowing about.
I mean, because the village board wouldn't be in control of things that come in front of the board, so that's why, I mean, if they're gonna consider something that
Yeah.
comes to them, that's why I was just taking that out of context. Okay, so in terms of communication, I think that, you know, I don't know what the village does now to communicate in terms of the trustees and the board. I know that on ZBA, that they put the hearings in the newspaper and the advertiser, it's on the website. You know, I don't know if they use social media, but I would just say exploring options to get the word out to as many people as you can about topics that are coming up. Obviously, word of mouth, going to the different groups in town to see if they would spread the word on things. So avenues to increase communication, I think, would be important. But I do think that the village does do it in terms of the public awareness, in terms of the website and in advertising. So I know they send letters to people, you know, for zoning, for hearings. They send communications to everybody within a certain radius of issues. So, you know, in my mind, they've done a good job in terms of zoning. And again, I don't know for the village, but I would just say, you know, just try to get the word out as best you can, and try to hit, you know, as many people as you can with the information.
Communication, I think, is extremely important, and we've been actually improved in our communication with residents as technology's become available. We spend a lot of money on mailings. When there's something that happens, we send out mailings to all the residents in the surrounding area. We spend quite a bit of money, thousands of dollars on that. When there's something going in, a building or a new zoning change, there's a sign that goes on the lawn. We have a Facebook page. The village has an excellent Facebook page. We have a better website. We had our website just recently redesigned. It's much more user-friendly. We publish in all of our public hearings are listed in the Advertiser, which is the official newspaper of the village of East Aurora. So they're listed in there. It's not fun reading, but you can look at that. And village board meetings are all videotaped, and you can watch them at your leisure or as they're happening from your home. So those are all current things we're doing. We're also looking at purchasing a service called Code Red, which is a system by which we can communicate digitally information to residents regarding whatever it is that we need to. And we're in the process right now of working that out, deciding how we want to do that, if we want to do it. But that's a really effective way of communicating information to villagers very rapidly, very efficiently when there's something coming up. So we have multiple channels of communication in place now, and we're adding another one. So there you go.
I hope you publish the agenda for the village board meetings.
It's always it's in the...
On the website?
On the website.
Okay.
And call Village Hall. If you have a question, we have wonderful staff who are in the office, and they would love to talk to you if you had a question about something, or come in and visit in person. They're very nice people.
Can I start?
This is a short one.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say with that Code Red, well, I think one of the functionalities of that is that you can get in touch with people via their cell phone.
Their cell phones.
And they can sign up and opt in and out, so that...
For different layers of it.
Right.
For different, there's a lot of options to it. I don't want to
Yeah.
have limited time, and I want to get all
Right,
of
no,
it.
but I think that's great that you guys
We
are...
probably should
Yeah.
talk about that a bit more in another meeting, but you're right. But there's a lot of ways that we communicate.
Excellent. All right, this is a short one, I think. Do you support adding electric car charging stations to the town and village hall parking lot for visitor use?
Is it me?
Ernie's first.
Okay, all right. Yeah, yes, we have one right over here behind the Senior Center. And we need to add more. We've discussed it when Tony Rosati, who's on the village board right now, sadly, he's moving away. He had a great idea. He suggested we put charging stations in the new parking lot behind Barville, incorporate them there. And that was not feasible for several reasons. I think yes, we do. I think as more cars come online, electric cars, EVs, you'll see charging stations appear on private property as part of service stations, as part of hotels and motels and shopping centers and grocery stores. You will see them. People will be able to use their charge card to access, charge their car while they're shopping or getting a roast beef or whatever you happen to be doing. But this is all technology that's in the works, and we'll see where it goes because, charging stations, battery swap stations, rapid charge. There's so much, this is all in flux right now. All of this technology, as well as the artificial intelligence technology, is all in flux. Things are changing very quickly, things are moving forward. The technology will be there. And I foresee the future of electric vehicles, electric everything, starting with fleet vehicles, delivery vehicles, and then moving into just regular passenger cars. And being able to charge those quickly, on your way in minutes. Okay?
I don't need that. Yes.
That's good.
Yep. Yes.
Some people get short.
Yeah. Was I supposed to suggest?
You know a lot more about the situation than I do, so I'm
Well,
going to be coming on and on a learning curve, but yes, the answer is yes.
I'm actually, you could probably tell I'm very enthusiastic about electric cars.
Okay.
I've been doing a lot of.
Remember, this is supposed to be between
Oh,
the
sorry.
audience.
I know. Well, we get along already.
I know.
I like her. I want her
don't
to
have
sit
to worry
next to
about
me at the table. She'll give me good ideas, like she is now.
Following the derailment, and this is to Molly first, following the derailment in the center of the village a while back, there was a lot of talk about what chemicals were traveling through our community. I've heard nothing about this issue of late. But how should this be further explored for our safety? The chemicals traveling through the village.
I don't know the answer to that question. At the time that the derailment happened, the conversations that I had with people, I did not hear anything about what was traveling on it or what the contents were. So I guess the answer to that question would be, as a village trustee, I don't know what our purview would be or with the relationship with what comes through the community on the train tracks. So I guess I would have to look into that because I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I guess just becoming aware of it, if there's anything that we can do, I don't know what it is. I mean, if it's state-owned or, just to do whatever we can to see what's traveling around. And if there's an opportunity for us, I would say, to do something about it, to just make an informed decision after I'd have more information about it. So you can probably speak.
Yeah, well,
Since you're on the board.
that is,
Since you're on the board,
well, it's a good question, and it's a question.
Yeah.
I know the emergency responders have some method by which they can tell what's on. There's a train log, an inventory that they can access. They did that that night. But a lot of times we don't know what's on those trains as they're rolling through, and that's scary. Very scary.
Yeah.
But I know that they were able to identify the whatever products were on there that night, and allay some fears. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the fire department actually had practiced a drill, like a couple days or a day before the train derailment about what to do in the event of a train derailment.
Oh, great.
They had actually practiced it, which I thought was interesting. But I would probably need to ask Roger LeBlanc, the fire chief, as to what exactly happens, because he would have the answer. But I can only guess that is the. But there is a method. They have to have a some sort of identification of what is contained for emergency responders in case there's a derailment somewhere along the way. But we don't want to go through that again. That was that was not.
All right, the next question. Except for the East Aurora Advertiser, there is no notice as when voting days occurred. And after the fact, many people said they would have voted if they had known it was village town voting day. As a remedy, do you support, for instance, hanging a banner from the bridge on Main Street, giving people at least a week's notice that there's an upcoming voting day? Or what else would you suggest?
Well, on their notice, I bug people. They get tired of me asking, hey, when are you going to vote? When are you going? Don't forget, you got to vote, you got to vote, you got to vote. And it's everywhere I go. But in all seriousness, a banner on the train tracks, that's not a bad idea. Anything we can do. I mean, I think the cue is when you start seeing those Molly Flynn signs up, the Ernie Shear signs.
Yeah, Ernie came out this morning, so.
That these are that these signs that indicate something's happening. I do believe we do inform the public on the village website. There's an election coming up. I think people get busy. I really don't. You have to read the advertiser. You just need to be aware. What doesn't help is that we have such staggered elections, and I realize this is a problem for people. When I hand out my pencils, I always tell them that you vote here in this building, because a lot of people they assume, well, I go to where I vote for president, or I vote for where I go for because it's so, it varies, and then all these different dates it gets confusing at times. So I don't know, I think anything that we can do to try to advertise that there's an election coming up, make people aware. I want people to vote. I want to get as many people out as possible. It really bothers me that we only have a small fraction of our village residents who are registered to vote. This is something that's important to me as a child of parents who lived under dictatorship, and where people did not have the right to vote. Exercising your right to vote, I consider that to be very, very, very important, even at the lowest level, at the village level.
So again, my answer is anything that we can do to get the word out, we should try. Again, the website, social media. Maybe it's the code, maybe it's some sort of electronic communications. This is my first go at this public office, and just going out and talking to people, they didn't even know, most of the people didn't even know when the election was. So it's disheartening, to say the least, that, and I think that the staggered schedule has something to do with it. It's the middle of winter. It's village, and so it's not the county, and so I think that there's a lot less sort of buzz or chat about it in the public dialogue. So, everybody knows that elections are in November, but people don't know primaries and the village elections. So, again, I would be a proponent of anything, putting it out, people standing on the corner with a sign telling people what day it is. I mean, I hope they all come out on Tuesday, but
Wednesday.
the 15th.
Tuesday.
Oh, Peg, you're killing me, lady.
Tuesday, March 15th.
Yeah, so, yes, I would be in favor of anything, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, you go try something else. But anything that we can get out to get the word out to people would be great.
What would you do to reduce the noise pollution on Main Street from motorcycles and heavy trucks?
I'm not sure that there is much that we can do. It's a state road. You know, I think that our hours of business dictate some of when the traffic is. Some of those heavy trucks come at off hours in the middle of the night, and you know, I sometimes hear things at my house. So I'm not sure there is much to do that we could do about that, unless we reroute it, which I don't think is very practical. And motorcycles, you know, again, I think that that's just people's personal preferences, that that's their mode of transportation, and you know, unfortunately some of those are loud, but again, you know, I believe in a welcoming environment, and if they want to come and shop on our Main Street and go to our restaurants and support our businesses and enjoy the village, that they should be allowed to do so. You know, and diverting them would actually put them in more residential areas, so I don't know that that would be a fix either. So I guess that's my answer there.
Yeah, I agree with Molly. There's not really much we can do, and I think, you know, the guy who spent the $25,000–$30,000 on the new Harley, he wants to be allowed. That's part of the. I've accepted it because my backyard essentially backs up onto Main Street, so when I'm in my garden, I hear it. And I've grown up there. I've lived there almost all my life, and unfortunately, that's you know, something that I have to listen to. But I've learned, I guess, over time, just like I've learned, you know, to like the trains rolling by, or when Jackson's Bowling was down at the end of the street, I got used to the bowling alley, the pins, and the, you know, you just adapt, you adjust, and pretty soon you don't hear it anymore. I guess on the flip side, to get back to the electric vehicles thing, you know, when you get electric vehicles, you don't have a lot of noise. So just give it some time, hang in there, because 25, 30 years, you might have less noise with the EVs rolling around everywhere.
Okay, and we go to Ernie first this time. The village has been cautious about how to embrace the introduction of legalized cannabis in the community. Would you also be in support of taking a look at reining in the open container policy in the village and the rampant drinking alcohol abuse in parks, festivals, etc.?
I'm in favor of the, you know, just maintaining it as it is. It was the best kept secret, you know, the open container law, not having one for 4 years, and then someone let the cat out of the bag, and then we suddenly became party town. I don't see a lot of people abusing the privilege. You know, I think there's the few occasions, Music Fest might be an example, but I even with Music Fest, I haven't really seen the you know, rampant, you know, misbehavior. I think there are certain bars within our community that perhaps cause a few problems, but I'm not really in favor of changing that. I think most adults are responsible. Most adults, you know, don't walk around with a beer in their hand, or if they do, they're going to see a neighbor down the street maybe, and it's not really an issue. Unfortunately, we've gotten the reputation from people outside our community that, hey, this is a novel thing you can do. You know, this is like New Orleans or something. We can walk around with this, and a lot of people don't like that look. I get that, but I think generally speaking, it has not been a problem. I've been told that by the police. It's really a non-issue, and they don't want to get involved in ticketing people. You know, if we went the other way, they don't want to have that extra hassle. So I say leave it as it is.
Yeah, I think that would be my initial reaction as well. Again, I don't know from talking to the police or, people who would know more about it than I do, whether there is a problem or not. My neighbor walks his dog every day, and he's got a cocktail, which I'm assuming is alcohol, when they walk around the block with it. Do I do it? No, but it's certainly their right to do so. And I don't really see a lot of people on Main Street, or, I guess at some of the festivals and some of the other public events that it could be, maybe trying to keep them in a certain area and, not walking around where kids are or something like that. But I'm not really sure how we could do that or how we would address that. But again, I don't know that there's a problem, and if there is a problem or an issue that came up, I guess my answer would be that I would obviously listen to those concerns and with my fellow board members, decide if it was something that we needed to address at that time.
Molly first. Will you insist on green infrastructure as an integral part of any new development within the village?
Insist is a strong word. I'm not sure that I would insist. I think that encourage and promote, and where feasible. I mean, there's costs involved in it, and I think that every development plan would have to be looked at individually to see if it's feasible or not, but where it is feasible, and again, we have to change the way that we look at things and be open to new ideas, and some of them are going to take a little bit more effort than others to provide that nudge, and to get on that movement. I would certainly see myself landing on that side of that issue, but insist probably not.
I would agree. We've had plans come before us over the years, and we've always, in some cases insisted that there be green included, that there be trees planted. When Delia's redid their building and we had them add some greenery. We want trees planted. This is something that's important to us, and I love trees. I love the fact that the village has green lawns on its main street, large trees. I want to encourage more of that, but I think encourage. But I don't. There's also this thing about property rights, and people have a right to develop their land, but they have to do it within the community spirit. I think they need to, if we requested that they include green, that be part of any plan that we look at. That we always be cognizant of. We don't want just asphalt everywhere. We want to have green to soften the look of our village. That we have, we maintain that look that we have throughout the village, not just in the mid-Main district, but all the way down through the west end, which I think could use some additional greening up. By the way, I was very disheartened by what the power company did to those trees on Hammond Street last year when they pruned them back, but I guess that was the state regs, that's how they do it, but it was just, I love the look of our trees, and I want to include more.
All right, and this will go first to Ernie, and it relates to other things about, anyway. We'll ask it separately. East Aurora's numerous summer festivals are fun and good for local business, but they can be loud, and sometimes there is disruptive behavior along with bathroom and trash problems. What would you do to help this situation?
Yeah, they can be loud, and then it's disruptive, and a lot of people prefer a quiet community, but people like to have something happening in their town, and people like something to do. I think when we talk, I think probably the primary activity they're referring to is Music Fest, and I think they do a very good job Music Fest does a very good job of cleaning up after the event. Garbage is picked up, cans are picked up, litter is disposed of properly. We have volunteers who go out and gather up recyclables, cans, to be disposed of properly. Whenever you have any sort of an event, and even a church carnival, you're always going to have someone who misbehaves. It's just, if there's human nature, you'll have people who act inappropriately or have a few too many. We have police to deal with that, we have security. I don't think we need to go the route of not having festivals, and I don't know how do you crack down on personal behavior? How do you, I think actually most of the festivals we've had, people have been very well behaved. I haven't seen a lot of problems. We really haven't had many issues. I speak to the police department after them, and they tell me that things were generally okay. And the village is cleaned up following the event.
I agree with the notion of, events are fun, and it's part of the reason why, it used to be Toy Fest when I was a kid, and, now it's Music Fest, or, the big car shows and things like that. So it's fun to have those events in town, and, 4th of July and parades, and it's part of the reason why people live here. But I think that we can encourage these festivals. I mean, Jen Brazil does a great job with Borderland and is very environmentally conscious and beyond green in terms of going to an event. I mean, it was great. So again, when these festivals come up for special use permits, I think asking them what they're going to do to control the waste and how they're going to clean and what their plan is, and holding them to that that behavior is something that we can do from a board perspective. And then again, with people having being overserved a little bit, I think that again, we have the police to handle those matters, and they're few and far between. And we set the example of how we want people to behave, and if they don't, then there's consequences. There are personal consequences to that.
Okay. And Molly,
Yep.
All right. What guidance would you give to area businesses and schools concerning the wearing of masks if another COVID surge should appear?
I think as a village board member, our responsibility would be to follow whatever the CDC and the county, the guidelines that are set forth by professionals. I'm not a physician. I think that people, this is a really touchy subject for people in terms of their own personal beliefs, and but I think at the end of the day, being part of a community means keeping everyone as safe as we can, and I would suggest that we follow any guidelines.
Yeah, we as a village government, we have to follow state and county guidelines. They tell us, and it isn't for us to decide those types of things. It's a higher authority that has more expertise than we do. And as Molly said, we are not physicians. That is not in our wheelhouse. So we defer to the state and the county.
Okay, and this is I have the count, okay. The 17th and the last question tonight.
Okay.
We know from letters to the advertiser that the village is open to being inclusive. But what would you do to expand cultural diversity in our ongoing marketing efforts to increase tourism? And one part of it is, would you support adding a statement on social justice to the village and town websites, as is now on the Visit Buffalo Niagara website? So you got two parts.
Never thought of that question. Yeah, no, I believe in inclusivity. Growing up in East Aurora, it was, I believe people here were open-minded, and we're okay with having people of different backgrounds live here. But, and I don't think, I never felt that we were not a welcoming community to people of all backgrounds. But we can certainly do better. And perhaps we do consider, maybe we have create another board of volunteers, like we have a tree board, or we have a historical preservation board, maybe a board of, whose goal is to encourage social justice within our community. We have recently established a special a residence for people with disabilities over at the Southside School, providing them with supervised housing. These are people with developmental disabilities to allow them to live semi-independently. That's inclusivity. But I think we could always do better with that. I think that's something that I think everybody should promote that. I want to live in a community with people of different backgrounds. I don't want everybody to look like me. And unfortunately, that was the way it was growing up here all my life. And I think that'll change. I think as society begins to, as we move forward, I think we'll see us become more. We'll begin to look more like, the United States as a whole. In terms of, the people who live here.
Yeah, so I work mostly in higher education, and a lot of colleges now are doing really great stuff with DEI, with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Many have officers completely devoted to that now. And I think that whether as a village that we could do things, maybe get a consultant, get training, whatever, that we can do to, I'm a big proponent of this, and it's something I feel very strongly about in terms of diversity, that the village is now much more diverse than it was when we were kids. I went to high school in the city, and it was very eye-opening for me. And I think that the more diverse you are, the better. The better. So I would be in favor of doing anything that we can. Certainly a statement on social justice, I think, would be an important message. I think mission statements and vision statements are very important in that they communicate to outside who we are and our values and what we stand for. And then there's walking that talk. So I think that in our policies, in our day-to-day lives, that, like Ernie said, we can always do better on this. And it's a learning curve, and the more people you have, the more diverse ideas you have. Two heads are better than one, and different ideas are what makes the world go round, in my opinion. So I don't want to be on a board, or I don't want to live in a community where everybody thinks the same and looks the same. And I think that there's something really wonderful about diversity and inclusion. So I think those houses are, sorry I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I think those houses are a great addition to our community.
Stop.
Stopped.
But you learned how to do it. Congratulations.
You're ready for the next one.
There's a good teacher back there.
Actually, I misspoke. I was handed another question. And it will go first to Molly. Can something be done to maintain our historic buildings and any housing if the owner isn't cooperating?
Can anything be done? that's a pretty broad statement. In terms of they want to change the appearance of their house, I mean, there's, unless something, my understanding, a building is on a list, or there's some historical preservation considerations, I don't think that you could do anything in terms of public, someone's private property. Certainly, this just came up at the village board the other night, about the locksmith building on Main Street that used to be a pharmacy and all that, that the owner wants to build something else there. And, the question now is, the Historical Preservation Board did not agree with that and had some other ideas. And so, I think if these things come up in front of the board, I think every situation has to be taken on an individual basis, case-by-case basis. But, I think that in terms of the board, whatever the extent to which that we can influence that would be something that I would be very interested in and gather as much information as I could and try to make a decision. But in terms of someone's personal property, I don't believe that there's anything you can do. You might be able to have someone go talk to them and try to talk them out of it, or encourage them to do something. But certainly in terms of commercial buildings.
The word was maintain, which maintain, is there something to do to maintain?
Well, I think,
Which to me, I guess I was thinking of not allowing it to fall apart. And, that's.
Demolition by neglect.
right.
Pardon me?
Demolition by
Right.
neglect.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think there's codes that, people have to maintain their property, but again, that's a subjective, what I think is maintaining and what someone else thinks is maintaining could be two different things. So if it's a historic building,
Huh?
yeah.
Time is up, but a little more since you asked a question.
Yeah, let her talk a little.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would just say that within the purview of whatever the extent to which you can promote or encourage someone to maintain it, as far as you can do it, then, the board should obviously look into a situation and try to maintain those. Everybody, no one wants historical buildings to go away, but I'm sure that there's some parameters around that, and there's going to be some things that we'd want to do that we can't.
Okay, yeah, I have a lot of connection to this, and I've seen buildings disappear over my lifetime, and to be turned into parking lots. Beautiful Victorian home, which is now a West Terre parking lot, etc. Buildings down by the Circle that were torn down, and but I have a couple examples. The Price House, the Irving Price House, founder of Fisher Price Toys, and the home next to it. Okay, so the Price House was built about 1845. Walking past it one day, I realized the windows are open, the lights are off. Walked around, looked at it. Something they're not maintaining it. It had just been purchased by the restaurant across the street. This looks odd. Started asking questions, put some pressure on certain people, got answers, found out that they were planning on tearing those buildings down. The Irving Price House. Tearing them down, put a parking lot on that spot. So I went to the newspaper, I did a little bit of a media blitz, and I got them to sell the properties to a new owner to be saved, because they were claiming that they were structurally unsound. They were not. I knew that. The warehouse on the Roycroft campus, as well as the Fournier house and the Bungle house behind it. Alexis Fournier was the painter who painted the oil paintings in the salon in the Roycroft. He lived in that house, but those buildings are not being properly maintained. How do we deal with it? Legal channels. That's all I'll say with that. But we have to say these are our historical architectural memory. This is part of the fabric of the community. This is who we are. This is why people come here to look at East Aurora. We cannot afford to lose any of those buildings. They are nationally important.
Okay, so that means we had 18 questions, which is quite an evening. And like I said, that they were outstanding questions. And we've given you a break to take a breath of air, or Molly, before you make your closing statement. So Molly's first, and she has 3 minutes, followed by Ernie.
Yes, true.
No.
You might need 3 hours.
I don't
You might
need 3.
Right, there were so many questions tonight. Those were, yeah, like you said, those were wonderful questions. Things I hadn't thought about and some things that I had. So, again, I guess that's what's great about being a trustee. You never know what's going to come up in front of you, and you have to be nimble and be able to be responsive. And, you know, I consider myself a worker bee, kind of. This is not my natural, I'm not really the person who's out in front very much. I like, give me the paperwork, I'm gonna go home and do my homework and read about it and crunch the numbers and participate that way. So this is, I'm welcoming the opportunity for a new challenge and to get out of my own comfort zone in this, and think that I could be a real service to the community and a good addition to the board. I think the board's done a great job. Generally, I think you know, they're committed, and I'm excited to the opportunity to join them if I can, and to serve the community and to learn. I mean, I learned a bunch here tonight, so I think that yeah, I'm excited. I'm a little overwhelmed, but ask me next week. But this is exciting, and thank you for inviting me tonight, and thank you for listening to the sort of jumbled answers that I gave. And hope you all will consider me when you vote on Tuesday.
Molly, I think you did a great job, and you will be a fine addition to the board. And I remember the first time I came up here, and I thought this, and it wasn't this, it was that. And I was told, you know, to believe one thing, and it really wasn't. And it wasn't until I was on the board for a while, sitting next to Pete, who straightened me out, and that I learned a lot. And it's kind of it is nerve-wracking to be up here, and you're trying to answer questions, and sometimes you just don't have that expertise. And in that way, it's not really fair. But you did a wonderful job, and I think you're going to be a great addition to the board. And I just want to say I'd be honored to serve. I've been serving for 16 years. Maybe I'm getting a little stale, but I really love to do it. I enjoy it. I make every effort to come to the meetings. I pay attention. I try to have an open mind. I try to look at the long-term solutions. I try to do the right thing. I talk to people. I get different perspectives. And a lot of times the decisions and the way I vote isn't really how I feel. It's really what the people want, because they're who I represent. I try to be open to people, responsive. I call people back when they call me. And that's what you need to do. And I just would like to do another term if I can, and maybe go beyond that if I'm still alive. I'll be 62 at the end of 4 years, so we'll see. Well, I had, yeah, I gotta start working out because I get through the 4 years. But I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really enjoy meeting the residents of East Aurora and knowing my community and contributing in a way. It's an honor, it really is. And working with such a great board, we have a fantastic board right now. We respect each other. We are polite to each other. You know, we respect each other's opinions, and we have, you know, really smart people who are just good at different things, and they're just such a joy to work with. You're really going to like these people. I have, and I wasn't always like that. You know, there were times when we had, you know, there was divisiveness, and that's not good. It's never good. You know, you need to be able to respect each other and hear each other out and realize that you don't know everything, that someone else might have a better idea, and utilize the talents that everyone shares, and just do what's right for the community long term. You know, just do what is right. Take care of the community, keep it the beautiful place that it is, maintain the character, and make it continue to, the reason why people want to live here, and why it's become so vibrant, and has really, really taken off in the past few years. So, but thank you for the opportunity to allow us to speak, and I rambled too a little bit. So, and those questions were great, and there's a couple of very challenging questions there. I hadn't really, the inclusivity question, I actually have an idea about maybe talking to the high school about creating a diversity club, and maybe they could act as advisors to the village. I don't know, I got to thinking about that. So we'll talk. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you both very much, and thank everyone who was here this evening. There were two things I want to mention, two upcoming things on Saturday, this coming Saturday, March 12th, by Zoom at 1 p.m. We have an environmental engineer who has worked much of her career at the West Valley Demonstration Project, but she's worked in a number of different places, okay? And the League has long been concerned with the nuclear waste at West Valley, and they are coming up with important decisions coming up. But Elizabeth is speaking a great deal about her own experience as an environmental engineer, but also we're hoping that she highlights some of the concerns and the health concerns that there are, because we're all in the watershed. Okay, this is a big concern. And so in order to attend, you need to register, and you may register at the League's website, lwvbn.org. And then another thing that's coming up in May, and I'm not sure the date, and I'm not sure the place, it will be on our website advertised. It's an experience of working and talking about issues, mainly race issues, okay, but issues of diversity. It's called Playing the Race Card, and some of us went on a very cold night this winter, and we had a wonderful, it was a very, very interesting discussion, because everyone in each small group had a different perspective. And that's really good. So that's coming in May. And then also in May, on May 4th, we will be at the Buffalo History Museum, and that was going to be recorded, so if you can't come to the History Museum, we're also, the League is very concerned with what's happening at the Outer Harbor and on Lake Erie, okay? And so we are having a program that involves a video. It also involves two speakers. Margaret Wooster is from our Outer Harbor Coalition. It's much more about Margaret later. And someone from Waterkeeper. So it should be a very interesting program. And again, all of our programs are advertised on our website and also on our Facebook page. So that's my commercial for the night. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Ellen, Allison, Judy, and Pat. And, whoops, Al.